Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit.
Hello and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride of what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I will be in the driver's seat for today's show as we tell you how to stop chasing paychecks and start closing customers for life. Today's podcast, I want to do something kind of really totally different. I want to take and spend a little time with a tool that I talk so much about in a lot of my classes. That tool is the HP 10B2 financial calculator, the official calculator CCIM. This is the calculator that I talk about all the time. And for those of you that are listening, obviously this will be a little bit more challenging. I'll try to walk through what we're going to do here a little bit. But those of you looking watching us on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. This that I'm sharing with you right now is my 10B2 financial calculator. This is what I use all the time in my classes to help agents be set up to work with customers more effectively and show customers exactly the value of what it is that they're buying. Because understand this, when you're selling real estate, what you're selling is the future. You're selling not just what they're getting now, but you're selling what's going to happen from now until they decide to sell. The entire period of time throughout there, that investor benefits or suffers from whatever goes on with the property. So the typical method that we use for valuing real estate is something simple called a cap rate. A cap rate just says, hey, look, the property generates $58,000 in income, and I paid $950,000 for the property. That property is giving me a 6.1% rate of return. It's going to take the net operating income and divide it by the purchase price. Simple. That problem with that 6.1% rate of return is that was $58,000 worth of income, right? Well, what happens when the rents go up from this year to next year? Let's say my rents go up 3.5%. So I'm going to add 3.5 and push the percent button, and it equals. And my rent in year two is $60,030. Well, if I still spent $940,000 to buy the property, $958,000 to buy the property, whatever it was that we had, that's now a 6.3% rate of return. So is it 6.1 or is it 6.3? Well, what do you think the rents are going to be 5, 6, 7 years from now? Those rents are going to be significantly higher, all compared back to that $958,000, which means it's going to go somewhere between a 6.1%, maybe an 8% rate of return. What's the real number? And wait a second, shouldn't I be able to sell it for more than what I bought it for? And so that's what the calculator here is going to help us out with. It's going to help us do a lot of things that we're going to need. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my calculator up like yours would be if you downloaded it today. If you download the app from the App Store, which is something I recommend every real estate investor and every real estate professional should do, it's going to say payments per year 12. And that means that the calculator is set up to do mortgages. And that is a way to take and be set up to calculate the mortgage payment, the mortgage payoff, amortization schedule, everything. From here, if we're going to take and we're going to look at investment and looking at investment property, we need to change to one payment per year. So we're going to take and push the one, the orange button, and the P/wire button. That's going to bring us over to one payment per year. Okay, from there, what we can do is we can use our top 5 buttons to figure out what a property that we bought today should be worth in the future. So what's a way to do that? Well, how much are we going to spend to buy a property? Let's say we buy a property for $850,000. Now, we're going to use our top 5 buttons to figure this out. And the easy way to remember this is the 3 buttons on the right over here at the top, these 3 on the right are always money. If what's up here is dollars, it's going to go over here. At least if you're in the US where we use dollars. If your country uses dollars, it's going to go over here, right? If it's not dollars, if it's not money, it's going to go in these 2 on the right. And when we're doing this is we're doing compounding, which is it needs to the calculator needs to know how much, for how long, at what rate. So right now we have the how much. We invested $850,000. Now this $850,000, we're investing it, so we no longer have it, which means we need to tell the calculator that it's leaving our life by making that number negative. So we're going to make it negative 850,000 so the calculator knows we're not receiving it, we're investing it. We're going to do that by pushing the PV button. In other words, I just took 850,000 out of my bank account and put it into an investment. If I bought a property, I bought the property for $850,000. I no longer have the $850,000 I used to buy the property. What I do have is I have the property. And let's say this property, we anticipate it's going to grow because of the inflation we're seeing. We're going to grow at 5% per year. So is that $5? That's not $5. It's 5%, which means if it's not dollars, it's got to go in one of these 2 over here. Well, we got the N and we got the I/YR. I'll give you one guess which one's the interest rate per year. It's going to be the I/YR. All right. And let's say we hold this property for 10 years. Is that $10? No, it's not. So that's time. We have our rate. We have how much. Now we have how long. That how long is going to win the N, which is for the number of years, number of payments or number of years. Okay, so we bought it for $850. It's going to grow 5% for the next 10 years. If I push the future value button, it's going to tell me I should be able to sell that property for $1.384 million. That, folks, is future value. Nice and easy, plain and simple. That just told me if I bought it for this and it grew at this and it did that for 10 years, this is what I could expect to sell it for. What if we want to be more conservative and say it's only 3.5%? I could type in 3.5 and replace the 5. Just type in 3.5 and then push I/YR and then push future value again, and it will automatically correct. What if I think it's going to grow faster? What if I think it's going to grow at 7%? I'll push 7, push I/YR, and then push future value. And now I have $1.672 million, which makes me feel warm and fuzzy and happy on the inside. So let's talk about something that we could do with this just to have some fun. I'm going to go back to my 12 payments per year and set this up to do a mortgage on a property. So let's say we're going to buy a property for $450,000 FHA. So that means my customer needs to borrow 96.5%. So I'm going to multiply 450,000 times 0.965, and it's going to tell me they're going to borrow $434,250. I leave that positive because in a mortgage, the bank gives me the money. Let's say they could get a 7.25% interest rate today, and they're going to make 360 payments. Okay, so that's a 30-year mortgage, 7.25%, $434,250. Okay, I told it how much, at what rate, for how long. It's 360 because right now we're set up to do monthly payments. Because in a mortgage, you make monthly payments. So it knows when I say 360, it means 360 months, which is 30 years. I'm going to push the PMT button. It's going to tell me the mortgage payment for that needs to be $2,962.35. Nice and easy. But I'm going to live there for 10 years, which means I'm not going to make 360 payments, am I? I'm only going to make 120. So now I'm going to tell the calculator, now that I know what my payment is, I'm going to tell the calculator 120 payments, and I'll solve for future value. And it tells me I still owe the bank $374,000. Okay, good stuff. So 374, let's call it 375 is what we owe the bank. All right. Let's see what that house is going to be worth. So let me clear all that. I'm going to do that by pushing the orange button and the clear button. I'm going to go back to 1 payment per year. I bought the property for $450,000, correct? Let's say it's like residential. Residential has been appreciating way more than 5% per year for the last several years. But let's say we're going to expect 5% appreciation for the next 10 years. I can expect to sell that for $733, correct? How much was my mortgage payoff just a minute ago? It's about $375. Let's say it was. I made $358,000. How much money did I actually have in the investment? Well, I had $450,000 times 0.035 in the investment. I had 15,750. If I divide that by the $385,000 in profit, I'm sorry, it's the other way around, $385,000 in profit divided by the $15,000. That's a 2,566.7% rate of return. Guys, what other investment type do you know of where you get a return? We make it look right for you so you know what I'm talking about. 2,566.667% rate of return on your investment. Why is that? Because, folks, when we buy our single family home, we're putting down so little and we're borrowing so much of the purchase price. But what do we experience appreciation on? We experience appreciation on the entire purchase price of the asset. Let me ask you a question. If you knew how to do that, and you knew how to do that well and could show it to the customer, do you think that would make them more or less likely to want to buy real estate? The answer's got to be more, right? So why don't they teach us to do this? I don't know. I don't know why they don't teach real estate agents how to do that, because we could easily do multiple projections in the property, show them multiple different ways it could work at it, and give the customer a better sense that we know how it works. So that is one of the fun things that we could do. We could also take a look at that investment property that we were talking about earlier, where you have income. Let's say we have 50,000 in income, just to keep the numbers round. And we have the property is a property that we're going to purchase for $1 million. So we buy the property for $1 million. So if we do that as a cap rate, we have get it backwards. Net operating income divided by purchase price. So 50,000 divided by the $1 million purchase price. We have a 5% rate of return. Easy, simple stuff. Okay. But let's do this. What if we bought the property for $1 million and the property appreciated at 5% for the next, let's not do 10 years. Let's do 8 years. Bought it for $1 million, can appreciate at 5% for the next 8 years. We can expect to sell the property for $1,474,000. Now, if we put our 50,000 in income in and say, hey, look, my 50,000 in income with this property is a 5% rate of return. If I put that in there and solve for this, I have a 9.285% annualized rate of return. So in other words, if my investor bought this and held it for 8 years and earned 50,000 in income and the property appreciated just like this, they would earn an average 9.285% rate of return. But wait a second, when we did the cap rate, it was only 5%. What's more compelling? The 9.285. What's more accurate? The 9.285. Why don't we tell them the 9.285? Because agents don't know how to do this. Why don't agents know how to do this? Because nobody ever teaches the agents how to do that. Well, why doesn't nobody teach them? Because they wanted to make sure that I had something to teach you guys. I guess I don't really know why I don't teach this stuff. There is one problem though, folks. This assumes this 50,000 in rent stays the same. What happens if this rent goes up? Well, this number's got to go up. Well, how do we do that? Well, luckily there's another button just for that. And that would be the CFJ button, which would allow you to take and put in your cash flow for every single year. So here you put in, you bought it for $1 million, and then you put your 50,000 in income in year one. And then in year two, if it went up, let's say it's 52,500. And then let's say it's 55,400. And then 57,000. That's gonna be a little more than that. 58,000 and 60,500 and 61,850. That's too low. let's say 64,000, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 2 more years, 7, 8. So this year we got, let's say, 68,000 in income. Now this year it gets a little bit messy. So let's say this year we had 72,000 in income. We have to take this number right here and add the 72,000 to that. And we have to put this number in because in the year that we sell, we would get both the rents because we would hold it for all year. We always project to sell at the end of the year. We'd hold it for the entire year, and we would sell it and get the sale proceeds as well. So I'm going to put in $1,550,000, 555. How about that? So I'm going to put in $1,555,000. And we have a 10.06% annualized rate of return, which means in order for an investment to be better than this investment, it has to return an annualized 10%, over 10% rate of return to the investor to be just as good as what we're selling them here, which is way better than this number and a whole lot better than when we're looking at this as our answer as well, right? All of that, folks, shows you just how on a $6 little calculator, you can do a whole lot of things to show your customer a whole lot of value and make them feel better and understand better what they're buying. I showed you both how to do this for a residential customer and also how to do this for an investor. That's quick, very quick and dirty, folks. I've spent hours teaching this stuff in classes because there's a lot of practice that goes into knowing how to do this and making sure you can do it when I'm not around. But if I wanted to give you something really quickly as something to look at, and I want to do it on a podcast because I just want to do something way different. This is just a look quickly at the 10B2 calculator, what it does and how it can help. And this will set you up to sound different, look different, be different than the other agents that they're talking to. And guess what? If you sound different, look different, act different, they're going to have to treat you different. And considering how most people treat real estate agents, that's a very, very good thing for you. All right, folks, that's all I got this time, reminding you, know your shit, know it cold, so that nobody can get the fastball by you. The customer is depending upon you. Your ability to know what the hell you're talking about is what's giving them the peace of mind to make sure that they use you and only you ever in any deal they ever do, so that you can start closing customers for life instead of chasing those paychecks like all the other agents do. Take care, guys.